Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whiskey Daddy Review number 20. Now, I know in Whiskey Daddy Review number 10, I stated that on every 10th episode I was going to do a mystery review and not put in the title what the actual whiskey itself was going to be. But it just so happened I have a very special bottle, and I want to bring it to you right now, have you guys take a look at it. It is... Dun, dun, dun. Boom. The brand new Booker's Rye. Now you can take a look at this bottle here. 5,854. I think they made about 8,000 of these altogether. 68.1% alcohol by volume. Aged for 13 years, 1 month and 12 days. And it is a tough bottle to get a hold of. Boy, let me tell you what, I had to jump through some hoops to get a hold of it. But thus far, it has been worth it. I have enjoyed taking some good sips out of this bottle. I'm actually going to put it back aside again here, even though it is a beautiful bottle, just so my focus doesn't go crazy on my cheap little camera here. Booker Noe, who died in 2004, actually laid this particular rye whiskey down in 2003. And then his son, Fred Noe, has just now bottled it up and sold it out as a limited release. So that's probably why it's so expensive and so difficult to find. But I had to get a hold of one. I wanted to bring one here to you guys as the last thing that Booker himself laid down. So here's my glass. As always, I'm going to tell you a little trick I did with this. Because obviously I've been checking this whiskey out, trying it, whatnot. The nose on it is a little bit hot. In other words, it's hard to get your nose down there because there's so much alcohol that comes off of the nose on this. I mean, 68%, that's a lot of alcohol. It's hard to get your nose in there, and it just burns your gosh darn nose hairs off, and you can't get in there to it. So what I did was I filled this small pour I have in here right now. I only filled it about that far up, and I put a pretty good drop of water on it. I'd say probably a full drop of water like that. And you let that little bit of alcohol sit there for about 1 hour with the lid on. Really get oxidized. Okay. Then you put a fresh pour of alcohol on top of that. I don't know why this works, but for some reason it calms the nose down where you can get in there and get rolling on it. Instantly, it smells very, very similar to the normal Booker's bourbon. Except you have that nice little sharp rye note in the back. Cherry cough drop. Brown sugar for sure. Even a little bit of vanilla in there as well. And a lot of oak. A lot of oak spice in here. I don't think they could have aged it any better a length of time. I think if it had been 1 day over, it had been too much oak. It definitely smells more like a bourbon than it does like a rye, but there's a reason for that. Rye whiskey is very similar to peated single malt Scotch whiskey in that the longer you leave it in the barrel, the more it loses that peat characteristic. So with a rye whiskey, it loses some of that rye sharpness. It starts to become more bourbon-like. You'll see this a lot with tequila as well. Once you start getting your tequilas extra añejo and you start aging those, they start to smell and taste more like a cognac than they do like a tequila. They lose that vegetal note. And so with this rye whiskey, you don't get that as much with like bourbon and regular single malt Scotch whiskey. Those particular grains hold up better. Rye has a tendency to really take on characteristics of the wood and pull from it. A beautiful, I don't know how, a brown sugar infused butter note in here. Definitely some furniture polish, definitely some leather. It's a beautiful nose, and when you let it sit for that length of time, put that fresh pour on top of it, it brings out so much character in this whiskey. This is not a whiskey you can just pour out and start drinking on. It's still a little bit of heat there. Mm-hmm. Woo! It is a huge whiskey. You get hit with everything. The arrival and development are almost together. You instantly get hit with some sweetness, some wood tannins, not overly tannic, just some wood tannins, a ton of cinnamon, nutmeg, heat, brown sugar. It all just rushes at you right from the very beginning. And it's almost like it doesn't have much of a. Most whiskeys, you'll have a transition in there. You'll have the arrival, you have the development, you have the finish. This is just one big event that happens. And then in the finish is when you start to pick up some of the more fainter notes of like almost like a banana bread, a little bit more of that oakiness that's more murky, if that makes sense, a little more cellar or Dunnage warehouse like, whereas the stuff up front is very bright, tannic, spicy. It's a very spicy whiskey, as it is with most ryes. And then it's so funny with these beam products. Every now and then you get that little bit of beam in there. You just know it. That little beam sour note. And I'm picking that up here. Even though this is a rye mix, who knows what the mash bill was? We don't know. That swell from the very beginning really reminds me of the swell you get on the mid palate on a George T. Stagg Jr. It's very similar to that. That huge waft of like cinnamon, wood spice, just spicy. All in all, I think it's absolutely delicious. I think it's a very good whiskey. If you can get your hands on it, go ahead and get it. Don't put it in some collection and let it sit there. Open that sucker up and let's drink it. As a matter of fact, I took mine. I made an old-fashioned with it. That's right. Booker's Rye, old-fashioned. We're going to sip on this one. We're going to bid you guys adieu. We're going to enjoy this expensive whiskey until the last drop. I'm the Whiskey Daddy, and it was a whole lot of fun bringing this to you. And we'll see you guys here next time for our regularly scheduled program that we're supposed to have with our E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. Wow. That's the best old-fashioned I've ever had. See you later, guys.